Everybody Hates Rand is a Wheel of Time podcast that will contain spoilers for all 14 books. So if you're anti-spoiler, pause this, read all 14 books, and come back. We'll be here, waiting.
Our title is a joke and is meant to be taken as such. In the context of this podcast, everybody refers to us and our cat. You are free to feel however you want about Rand, who is a fictional character. Don't DM us.
The world is a mess, Dark One stretching out his hand. The dragon's reborn, the fire's been fanned, but everybody hates Rand. Everybody hates Rand. Everybody hates Rand.
That's okay.
Welcome to the angriest episode of EHR that's ever been recorded.
Let it out, Emily.
No, I can't. I'll burn a hole in the universe.
But that you can't keep it inside because you'll burn a hole in your beautiful heart.
I can't. We need to just get through this episode. It's gonna be way shorter than a normal episode because, frankly, I feel like I can just condense everything I said yesterday into like 3 sentences.
Yeah.
And then just zoom, we're done, baby.
Okay.
Special short episode. And I can just, cause I dread nothing more than stopping recording this episode, because what if it happens, like, what if it's again? What if it's again? Who knows? Who knows?
Yes. You've probably figured this out via context clues, but we recorded this episode 167 of Everybody Hates Rand, your friendly neighborhood Wheelie Time podcast. And it was, as usual, super charming, and we had good bits, and we made the best we could of these 3 miserable chapters in Fantasy France.
I'd say it was an 8 out of 10, which is pretty good.
Which is pretty good. It was like a really solid EHR episode.
Yeah.
And we pressed the stop button, and then Audacity gave us some, like, insane pop-up. So Emily was like, oh, I'm going to check the audio. And then she played it, and our voices sounded like we were ghosts at a rave. Like, I don't know. We sounded really weird.
Audacity just chewed on the recording and was like, no, here, spat it back out like a cat coughing up a hairball.
Yeah.
And was like, is this what you wanted? And I was like, no, it wasn't what I wanted. Thank you very much. Now we have to, it was unusable.
Yeah, it was simply
unsalvageable. And it wasn't like a thing that you could tell when recording while we're monitoring.
Everything was totally fine.
Is recording. It was a playback issue. I don't know if I should just blame Audacity or if I should also blame my computer. As I was telling my sister yesterday, I have bad luck with computers. It seems like every one of them has been dysfunctional in some way or another. But, you know what the French say? Mi casse su casa.
Means that's life.
Yep, one of our favorite old standby jokes from Hurricane Bianca, a movie by and about a drag queen. No one's seen it but us. But that's such a solid joke.
I know, it's very funny.
I'm also angry for unrelated issues having to do with my family, but it is okay.
No.
My family and work. Woof. I just sat through the most offensive meeting of 2021. Why do we let old white men speak?
Yeah, I think we should muzzle all of them. But, like, not in a fun, kinky, sexy way. In a, like, they legitimately can't talk anymore.
Did you hear they banned porn from OnlyFans?
Yes, I shouldn't laugh because...
well, you should laugh because can no one learn anything from Tumblr?
Yeah.
Like...
The porn did not go away on Tumblr.
Yeah.
And also, everyone is pissed because porn is actually not a bad thing.
Yeah.
This might shock people, especially on OnlyFans, where you're a little bit more guaranteed that the people participating are doing so consensually and safely.
Yeah.
Than on places like Pornhub.com that have had tons of, like, rape tape scandals and underage like, we don't need to get into it, but yes, I heard that, and I was like, fuck off.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
I just think that we as a society need to let go of the idea that porn is a bad thing.
Yeah, it's pretty tough to do, especially in Utah, where porn has been likened to a pandemic. which is pretty funny considering how poorly Utah has reacted to an actual pandemic.
I know.
So clearly, we're not equipped to handle the pandemic that is pornography. It's winning, folks. The porn is winning.
The porn is winning. You, like, literally drive down the one major interstate in Utah, you know, and there will be billboards that's like, Cosmopolitan is melting your kids' brains. Porn, the new drug, or whatever.
I'm like, Cosmopolitan, that's where you're going
Yeah,
for?
and it's like that. You can find way worse things by Googling boobs. Like, that's all you have to Google on the internet, and you'll find way worse things than, although some weird shit is in Cosmo.
You can find way worse things on most television shows these days that are way more harmful to youthful minds. Not to be, like, puritanical about television. I don't really care. Everyone has their own free will to engage with things.
No, seriously, it'll be like, me and my family watched Game of Thrones, where prostitutes are routinely brutalized and women are constantly assaulted. But God forbid my children get on the internet and watch a porn video. Like, it just makes me insane. Like, there's literally an organization in Utah called Stop the New Drug that, like, tons of foundations give to.
Yeah.
Give tons of money to. It is simply absurd. Okay, we're going quickly. We're not letting Sally get on her soapbox about pornography.
No, I said this would be the angriest episode, and so far, it's been pretty angry, so I think we're, doing well. The only real joke I remember from the episode that we recorded last night was, I went through the human meat grinder, and all I got was this t-shirt.
Yeah, that's right.
And I'm pretty upset about losing that one.
Yeah, that one was really, really rock solid. And it was like, it's one of those, it was like at the end of the episode, so you had to listen to the whole episode to get the real payoff of that one.
Yeah, I was like, oh, that's gonna be the title for sure, in the moment, and then, gone.
Anyway, damn, that was a really good one. I'm upset. Podcast
I don't remember
over.
anything else, yeah.
No more EHR.
Boy, the amount of times I've said that to myself while editing things on Audacity. Okay. This is not the sad Audacity parade, although it might as well be.
It's the mad Audacity parade.
You already said that this is Everybody Hates Rand.
Yeah.
So Crown of Swords, chapters 3 through 5 are all about fantasy France, everyone's favorite fantasy country. Oh, I did also talk quite a bit yesterday about how I think the television show should just delete Andor as a concept.
Yeah, just completely gone. Like, the country does not exist.
All
Elaine
the
and
characters,
Gawain, Galad,
characters.
gone.
Yeah, woof. And I stand by that.
I stand by it, too. Other things we were deleting included the White Cloaks, books 1 and 2.
Yep. Oh, yeah, because we were talking about the television show releasing the promo pictures.
Yeah.
Which now you'll never know our opinions on that.
Yeah, there's simply no way you can look at our Instagram or Twitter and know what our opinions are on Barney Harrison's portrayal of Matt Cathon.
That's pretty much all I've thought about. Okay, Fantasy France. I just want to be like, Rand and Company return to France. They dethrone Colivir. The end. These chapters, and I'm gonna want to keep saying, as we talked about already.
Go ahead. The people will just have to deal with it.
These chapters, and you are not hearing the fresh out of the oven takes. These are day old, sort of crusty takes.
Yeah.
These are the ones that the bakery sells for half off because they've just been sitting out in the air.
Yeah, welcome to EHR half price.
Half price EHR. And my goal is to make it half as long as a normal EHR episode.
Okay.
These chapters are saturated with Perrin's deeply patronizing concern with Fail, who, in the first chapter, when the group? Seems weird to call it a group when it is like 1,000 people. It's not like a group project, you know.
Just your group.
It's not a Dungeons and Dragons party. When the small army arrives back in Cairhien, they're immediately greeted by one of the wise ones who they've just stationed wise ones around the borders of Cairhien. It's pretty amazing. I mean, Taviran. You can always say it's a pretty amazing coincidence, but Robert Jordan has written amazing coincidences into his plot structure. But they're greeted by a wise one who gives them the bad news that Rand, suddenly leaving, apparently in the company of Aes Sedai, has led a bunch of the Ale to get clinically depressed again and go back to wherever the clinically depressed Ale go. It's never been revealed what's happening to them. I suppose the most rational explanation is that they're going back to the waste. But
like, literally anything could be happening. They could be going out, they could just be walking into the ocean. They could be joining the Tuathon. I can never say that word, I'm sorry.
Arguably the most interesting thing I think they could be doing is if the Tuathon just suddenly became a huge group of people.
And it was like the pacifists have taken over.
Yeah, a former Ale. That would be pretty funny.
That would be so rad. And then the Dark One comes to fight, and it's like, too bad pacifism has taken over the continent.
We talked about how Rand came over the Dragon Wall with this massive group of Ale. Yeah. Like,
his faceless horde.
Yeah, it functions to be a horde, in both the Orientalist sort of fear of that word, the faceless horde, and also just to sort of make Rand this invincible conqueror.
Yeah.
At the head of this huge army, and so the only real function of the Ale numbers decreasing ever, whether it's in battle or like here because of something Rand has done, is to decrease Rand's power level a little bit, because the problem with giving him a massive unbeatable horde of people in book 5 is that it's going to be a little difficult when you get to book 14 and there's the last battle to be like, how can he not win, you know?
Yeah, he's got literally 1 million Ale
He's
or
got
whatever.
so many Ale that have just had no problem with any other group of people before.
Yeah.
So this is just Robert Jordan nerfing Rand and trying to go back on what he already did. Rand could easily have conquered Cairhien with many fewer Ale. Especially because that would mean by necessity that there would be fewer Shadow, because the Shadow are a percentage of the overall number of Ale.
Yeah, and as we talked about in the prologue, it's like there are
so many.
An unfathomable number of Shadow just at Dumai's Wells.
Yeah.
Whatever. Robert Jordan doesn't know how to count, I guess.
Anyway, the Ale are upsetty spaghetti. The Cairhienin are equally in bad straits because Quillavir, after murdering several of her competitors, has claimed the throne, saying, "Oh, the Dragon Reborn told me it's totally cool. Look at my permission slip from Daddy. He said it was fine."
Disgusting.
And the Cairhienin are like, I mean, that seems fake, but okay. We also don't really care.
No one in the city will do anything.
The Cairhienin are like, this seems like it'll play out in a fun way.
Yeah.
So
like,
we'll just sit back and watch the show.
Everyone's got their popcorn.
Yeah. Meanwhile, a bunch of rebels, both Cairhienin and Terran, have moved way closer to the city. As like a recap, because this has been mentioned so many times without ever actually becoming plot relevant. There's a group of rebels who are mad that Rand took over Cairhien. They're led by a woman named Caroline Damodred, so I guess she's a cousin of Moiraine's. And a guy named, I think, Torum Riotin. So both the Damodreds and the Riotins have claims to the actual throne of Cairhien. I think those were like the last two kings or whatever. So there's a group of Cairhienin rebels. There is also separately a group of Terran rebels who are mad for the same reason. Rand took over Tyr. They're led by a guy named Darlin Cisnera. And now those two groups have apparently converged and are pretty close to Cairhien. So it's a dangerous situation. And the Aes Sedai are like, how dare you presume that you, an idiot farm boy, could handle the delicate matters that are laid before you? You simply must take our advice. And Rand is like, interesting. I need you to leave now. Please go with the wise ones to their tents. And the Aes Sedai are like, excuse me? And Rand's like, I don't need your advice.
Yeah, he's like, I wasn't kidding when I was like, you can get fucked.
Yeah, the wise ones are in charge of you, and also it would not be good for my image. to arrive back with a bunch of Aes Sedai advisors. Did you not hear that part? The Ale are all upset because I left with the Aes Sedai.
Left with the Aes Sedai.
Yeah. So that problem of the many Aes Sedai is being shunted to the side.
Mm-hmm.
Meanwhile, and we're getting all of this from Perrin's point of view, we find Perrin grows concerned because, of course, Fael was in Cairhien. He's like, oh, what happened to Fael? What happened to Berylane, who was in charge when we left? He, for a little while, is like, oh, it's fine because Bane and Chiad are with Fael. Then Gaul comes up to him and introduces the idea that Bane and Chiad are not with Fael in the wackest way possible. Just by sort of complaining about his women problems, which I interpret as Robert Jordan being like, I don't know what to do here. I don't know how I can make Perrin as worried about Fael as I want him to be without retconning that Bane and Chiad are with her.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to retcon that without Gaul just sort of throwing it out into... So it's a pretty clumsy piece
it just feels a little out of character for Gaul, I guess.
Yeah, Gaul does complain about Bane and Chiad, but usually when it's relevant.
Yeah, he's just like randomly like lamenting sigh, women.
Just like, Perrin, women, am I right? Like 5 minutes after it's been announced that Fael, Perrin's wife, is in a city that has been taken over by a usurper. Like, Gaul's a little more sensitive than that.
Yeah. It's very stupid.
But Perrin's like, oh my god, Bane and Chiad are with Fael? Surely she's been killed. And Gaul's like, your wife's a competent adult. And Perrin's like, shut up, Gaul. Fael's an infant.
She's an infant and an idiot, and she would not know how to tie her shoes if it were not for me.
He's like, I know she's an adult, Gaul, but political stuff isn't handled like it is with Ale. It's not just going to be like a duel that she could probably win. It's going to be like some political sabotage that could stab her in the back or whatever. And it's like, Fael also grew up in a court, given she did not grow up in the Cairhien court. But do you really think Davram Bashir would be so remiss in raising a daughter that she'd be an easy target for assassins?
Yeah. Come on.
So
stupid.
Perrin's underestimation of Fael and his it swiftly descends from sort of sweet. We talked a little bit about his magical thinking that if he can get Fael's horse into Cairhien, then that will somehow mean that Fael is all right. Mm-hmm. That itself, I think, would, if Robert Jordan was trying to portray Perrin as a more normal, concerned husband, would be a rather sweet evocation of that.
Yeah.
That's magical thinking like that is sort of a hallmark of just anxiety.
Yeah, 100%. That's what we talked about, that it's like, people think like that all the time. I know I do.
Yeah, me too.
It's just the way that it's like, you have an emotion that is simply like too big and you have no control over the outcome. So if you can find a way to fix the outcome,
yes,
it feels a lot better. And so it's like, that is very normal. But then Emily pointed out yesterday that everything else Perrin does is completely out of proportion to the situation. Like, he is going completely off the rails, just like,
and not like in his behavior necessarily, because he pretty well keeps the lid on it, but in his words and in the way he is behaving to other people. He says to Gaul and Loyal, I think, like, I don't care if the pattern burns as long as Fael's safe. Mm-hmm. And sort of that sentiment is obviously surprising to them because that's a buck wild thing to say. And is also meant by Robert Jordan to be foreshadowing for Perrin's arc regarding his treatment of and relationship with Fael. This is sort of a microcosm. This moment of Perrin being concerned for Fael's safety when it turns out she's totally fine is a microcosm for the situation in later books where Fael gets kidnapped by the Shadow. Mm-hmm. Also turns out to be fine, although it's a little more touch and go for a while there.
Yeah.
In that scenario, it is not just Perrin's words that are affected, it is actually his actions. He, starts slipping into gray area morality with torturing people to try and learn where Fael is, allying with the Shanshin. I don't think you're at that part yet, but
what?
He sure will do that, etc., etc. leading another huge and extremely grisly battle against the Shadow Ale, all for the sake of rescuing one woman.
I am now going to pass away. You have to find a new co-host.
I don't want to. If you're gone, the podcast is dead. You think I'd be motivated to keep going?
I have passed away.
It's pretty grim. And as I also talked about yesterday, if we are being generous with Robert Jordan, or possibly if we are being generous with Brandon Sanderson in an attempt to course correct, then Perrin and Fail's relationship can be read as a growth from toxicity to functional throughout the course of their relationship, because in the last book, spoiler alert, Fail is again in danger. Perrin doesn't know where she is or what's happened to her, yet this time he chooses to stick with his duty and saving the world, his greater moral duty to protect the world from ending.
Yeah, casual.
Yeah, Tavir stuff. So clearly there is growth there. And again, Fail turns out to be fine. I think I said it would have been way funnier if she was just dead.
It would certainly be a twist.
I just think that would be hilarious. But obviously that doesn't make the entire arc itself any less painful to read and any less patronizing to the two main characters.
Yeah, 100%.
Because every character arc suffers from being drawn out over 14 books.
Yes.
Nothing, like, everything in the Wheel of Time can... If you have a big problem in the Wheel of Time, it's either because of the latent misogyny, or because it's a 14-book series. Series are not meant to be that long.
Yeah, it's just too long. Like, the, first couple years of Fail and Perrin's marriage, where they're, figuring each other out and figuring out how to be married, could be interesting if it took place over a book and a half, maybe.
Yes.
I'd be like, well, this is realistic and interesting, and it's interesting to watch these characters grow in this way, but there's too many characters and too much in between, too many other massive plots to keep track of, that I'm just I just can't stand being in either of their points of view.
Yeah, and I think Robert Jordan probably justifies it to himself by being like, oh, well, this is only really, 6 or 9 months since they've been married?
Yeah.
Or whatever the timeline is, but a way shorter time than 10 books would suggest, But it's that doesn't change the fact that you're writing it over 10 books. So any length of time drawn out over that amount of books is going to read more like years and years to us.
Yeah.
And if you're spending that much time with your characters, then we want to see growth much more quickly.
Yeah, and because there are for both of those characters, there's multiple things they need to be working on and growing as people around, not just their relationship to one another.
I wouldn't have a problem with one of Perrin and Fail's character arcs being their marriage, if their marriage was progressing past the first step of not being toxic anymore.
Yeah.
That's a pretty baseline thing to want for your characters. So anyway, the whole thing makes Perrin look like a total idiot. The whole thing is so annoying for Fail because, obviously she's fine and has handled the situation and has managed to turn it to her advantage. But Rand and company head toward Cairhien, the city named Cairhien, within the country named Cairhien. So stupid.
Why?
There's no country on Earth.
Welcome to Canada.
Yeah.
Welcome to Germany. Welcome to France.
Hello, welcome to France. France squared.
Ugh, I don't want to go to France squared.
No one wants to go to France squared. The streets are paved with croissants.
Okay, that sounds lit, actually.
No, it would be really messy. Think how crumbly croissants are. Imagine getting that all up in your feet.
That's true. You're right. It's less lit than I thought it would be. That's also how I feel about Paris.
The streets are paved with croissants. Every street lamp is an eclair, somehow.
Okay.
Won't you take me to Croissant Town?
Croissant.
Stupid.
Okay. The city is, like, really bummed out, though.
The city's bummed out. They don't go in with their whole 1,000-person army. The people who go in are Rand, of course, Min, of course, Perrin with Aram, because for some reason Aram gets to go wherever Perrin goes. For some reason Rand isn't like,
Maybe baby psychopath stays home.
maybe this young man should have, like, time away from swords, violence, anything like that.
Perhaps a retreat, like in Fleabag, where he has to be quiet for
Oh.
a few days.
Stung by bee! Such a good episode.
Slugs! Yes?
Yeah, you should have to go on one of those, like, wilderness retreats for delinquent teens.
Delinquent teens,
A bunch of my cousins have had to do those.
You're just gonna drop that on me mid-podcast?
Yeah, well, they
You have a bunch of teen delinquent cousins?
Yeah. Yeah.
Are they the Washington cousins?
No, they're the Idaho cousins.
Oh.
Of whom there are
That makes
10.
sense.
Yeah. Dobrain also goes, also the guy in charge of the Maynor contingent, Norel, and of course all of the Ashman. Oh, and Loyal, who throughout this is just taking notes, like a true MVP.
Oh, what a cutie.
So, and a bunch of the maidens. Jesus. So
There's,
it is still quite a number.
Still like 80 people, probably.
But they enter Kyrian. They do not meet any resistance until they reach the palace proper, where, some guards are like, hey, maybe don't go in there. And Rand is like, I'm gonna go in there. Shut up. And the Ashman tie them up with air. Mm-hmm. They enter. They immediately meet a small contingent of the culturally appropriative Kyrianan young nobility. This particular group is led by a woman named Saland. That's how I'm gonna do it.
Salandy.
Who you may remember back from book 5 as a woman that Rand needlessly threatened so she'd stop flirting with him on Coulavir's orders. So she used to be one of Coulavir's, like, maidservants, but Rand scarred her for life, so clearly she has taken up a different career opportunity where she gets to carry a knife. Rand's like, don't worry, you have nothing to fear from me, in front of a contingent of armed women and terrifying men.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, sure, great.
Yeah, okay. Homie.
But they all enter the throne room, where conveniently all of the nobility have congregated for some sort of coronation ceremony. Not like the coronation, but, like, everything is drawn out over weeks.
Yeah, Dobrain tells us there's like 9 different coronation festivals because of fucking course there is.
Yeah,
the French monarchy, yeah.
Ugh, whatever. Dobrain's like, great, everyone will be there. And Rand's like, I love to make an entrance. And storms in like Viggo Mortensen in the 2 towers.
Kicks
only
the door
there's
open.
a ton of them, so it's less impressive.
And it's also way less sexy.
He walks up to Coulavir, who's like, is the back so soon? And he's like, hello, thought you'd seen the last of me, didn't you? And she's like, Pobity's perfect.
Whoopsie daisy.
Whoopsie, oopsie, whoopsie. He's like, gimme that, and like rips the crown off her head like a total psycho.
Yeah.
He effectively intimidates her. Perrin notes that in her little group of handmaids who are in their little matching dresses, among them is Thale, who at the opportune moment steps forward to present some evidence against Coulavir. Also presenting evidence against Coulavir is Honora, who is Berylaine's secret Aes Sedai advisor, who we didn't know about until now.
Why not? Yeah.
Because we needed another Aes Sedai character. Like, it would have been fine if Thale just filled this function.
Yeah, Thale was like, Coulavir has murdered several people.
Whatever. But Honora's here now. And she's like, Berylaine's fine, don't worry about it. When Perrin asks, and Thale's Kill Bill sirens go off. But Perrin relaxes, because Thale's fine, and apparently is not working with the enemy, which is the immediate presumption.
What's worse, your wife is dead or she's working with the French?
Well, Perrin would prefer her to be working with the French, and he would have fucking killed Rand over it, which would have been a hilarious end to the Dragon Reborn. my bro is so overprotective of his mean wife that he killed Jesus. Cool, whatever.
Baron becomes the Judas figure here. Judas.
No. Rand tries really hard to not have to sentence Coolivere to death to the detriment of the goings-on. He, like, draws it out way too long. It's finally Dobrain who's like, clearly she's committed treason and should be sentenced to death.
Yeah.
And Rand's like, do you have a little farm? And Coolivere's like, what? And he's like, a little farm. Do you have a little farm? And Dobrain's like, everyone has a million farms, Rand. They're like pennies.
Yeah.
Nobody even likes them.
It's a farm, Michael. How much could it cost?
$2. So Rand's like, I sentence you to go to a farm and, like, labor on the land like a peasant, and because you'll be contributing to society, and I also won't have to kill a woman. But, of course, as we know, having the benefit of foresight, I guess, Coolivere will commit suicide rather than do this, because she is so, caught up in the fantasy of being nobility, being better than people. Mm-hmm. It is beneath her dignity, beneath her code of honor, whatever, to have to labor like a peasant. It is a worse fate than death.
Yeah.
Which Rand obviously doesn't understand, being from a farming background himself, but he is also given plenty of in-text clues to understand and foresee this, such as when Dobrain is like, she's sentenced to death by hanging. Coolivere's like, well, I'm nobility, I demand to be beheaded.
Give me the headsman.
Give me the headsman. I don't want to die like a peasant.
Yeah.
And Rand's like, well, surely she'd rather live like a peasant than die like nobility. And I'm like, that's a pretty... have you met her?
Yeah, it's like, yes, that is the rational thing. That's what you would like to think most people would rather live and work on a farm and live what to Rand is a very peaceful and idyllic existence. And to probably a lot of other people there, because most of the little inner circle with Rand is not necessarily nobility. Like, there are a few of them. Mm-hmm. But, like, that's not her worldview.
Yeah, like, sorry that she is a creepy weirdo who loves the nobility, but that's the woman you're dealing with. So when Rand, you said it very neatly yesterday, when Rand prioritizes his own weird code of chivalry in trying to spare this woman from dying, he, you know, in a twist of self-fulfilling prophecy, actually causes her death. There was no way to get out of her dying, in other words.
Yeah, there was no way to get out of her dying, and so, yeah, when Rand prioritizes his own skewed chivalry, he ends up causing her much more distress and psychological suffering. He does not understand it, and he does not attempt really to understand this woman's point of view. He just is imposing his own code onto her. And it just is all to her detriment. And I'm not saying Coolivere is, like, deserves, you know, the benefit of the doubt, whatever. She's a creepy monarchist. But, like, she also, I don't know, maybe did have the right to make some own say in the way she died. Yeah. Like, that seems like a pretty basic thing to offer somebody.
And, like, in the same way, this is just another microcosm of what Rand has been doing to women all of the time, is prioritizing his own chivalry to their detriment. This is exactly what's happening with the maidens. Mm-hmm. When he prioritizes his chivalry, it upsets and distresses them. It does not save any of their lives, even. Really. There's literally no effect on the women in terms of lives saved.
Yeah.
Except that they're all upset and it causes a lot of drama. And, you know, in the very dramatic case of Coolivere, it causes her suicide. Mm-hmm. But again, we are looking at a 14-book arc, so Rand, frustratingly, will not learn from this.
It is really painful. Like, Fail and Perrin are mostly just bothering one another. You know, mm-hmm. Like, occasionally a few people get caught up in the current, mostly loyal RIP. So it's like, that is frustrating, but at least, like, in some ways, yes, they, like I said, people get caught up. So apparently parents starts torturing people and making alliances with the totalitarian regime. So maybe I'm making a moot point. Like, mostly they're just...
the Shanshin, right? Not the Shado.
Yeah.
He makes a line. Okay, good. I was like...
Yeah, no, to fight the Shado.
Both of them are totalitarian regimes.
Yeah.
Sure seems like.
But Rand is, like, literally out here terrorizing women and causing them to commit suicide. And it is just, like, you are... like, causing systemic violence against women because you are the leader of the known world at the moment. So maybe shut the fuck up. Whatever. I hate him. What a piece of shit.
Yeah, yet another great example of benevolent misogyny. So Coolivere, basically collapses. Rand's like, alright, everyone get out of my sight. Perrin, go talk to your wife.
Yeah.
And that is where we end those chapters.
That's where we end.
Yeah. I went through the human meat grinder and all I got was this t-shirt.
I went through the human meat grinder.
I think we talked about how I was upset that we didn't get to meet all the Ashaman, but...
We were talking about how, I think it was when Perrin's like, is Berylane okay? And Fail gets, like, pissed. And it's like, your husband just got back from the human meat grinder. Maybe you could be happy to see him.
Maybe, like, there was a big battle, obviously. She's like, I'm insane. It's like, well, he's insane too, so I guess you guys are perfect for each other. Whatever. Do you have anything to add?
No, bestie, I don't.
You're lucky you get to transcribe this episode.
I know.
It's short.
Sorry.
Hey, thanks everyone for listening. Sorry for any tonally
Inappropriate.
I don't know. Sorry we're not very happy. Sorry I'm not very happy.
Oh, it's okay. I'm not very happy either.
Sorry you missed out on our 8 out of 10 episode and you have to get this 7 out of 10 episode instead.
I mean, we're always amazing. It's just the degree to which we are hilarious and fantastic.
But I'm looking forward to turning the AC back on. Hopefully when I close this program, Audacity doesn't just shit it out again violently. Thanks a lot.
Fuck you, Audacity.
Thanks to Glenna McKenzie for our theme song. Thank you to our supporters on Patreon and our followers on Twitter, Instagram, etc. Like we said, if you want to know our feelings about the promo images for Amazon Wheelie Time, they're pretty much all there for your viewing pleasure. And I'm sure we'll talk about it more as more stuff comes out.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully, like, a trailer drops soon. This show's supposed to start in November.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So,
I would love a trailer.
Yeah, I don't really know what the timeline is, Amazon.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it. And do you have a sign-off?
I can just repeat yesterday's.
I can repeat yesterday's sign-off.
Which is that I have had the same therapist for almost 2 years, and she consistently spells my name incorrect.
Yes.
So, it's a real psychological mindfuck.
Which is great coming from a therapist. When it's not intentional either.
Yeah. Yeah. When it's just, like, repeated forgetting how my name is spelled.
She spells Sally's name with I-E.
Yeah.
Like Sally Dara.
Yeah. Should be my stage name.
And I said Sally should protest by misspelling her name. Which actually does end with an I-E.
Yeah, but I should put a Y in there.
Yeah, exactly. Alright, everyone. Have a good week.
Have a good fucking week.
Bye.